He has seen firsthand how difficult AI adoption becomes once real workflows
the kind of process bottlenecks or process gaps that are also
or every SaaS platforms claims to have AI features built in. Welcome back to our podcast, The Digital Shift by Kanerika. I'm your host Kanishka Goyal, and today we are talking about AI adoption and why most AI projects fail, not because of technology, but because people resist to use it. You can build any AI tool in the world, but if your employee does not trust it, do not understand it, or think it's going to replace them, the project dies eventually. And joining us today is Varun Saket. He's the product manager at Kanerika. He has seen firsthand how difficult AI adoption becomes once real workflows, business expectations, and employees enter the picture. So let's welcome him. Welcome to the show, Varun.
Thank you, Kanishka. Happy to be here.
So, Varun, every company wants to say they are AI powered now, right? But I feel most of them still doesn't know where AI actually fits into their business. So, when a company approaches Kenrika wanting to implement AI, so what's the first conversation you have with them?
That's interesting. So I think most organizations approach AI with excitement, but also a bit of pressure as well, because you have kind of pressure coming in from the leadership, from the market, and also from the competitors and being called AI driven. And I think that's why we focus here to first kind of shift conversation from the technology and to more on the side of the business outcomes. So that means the question doesn't start at what model to use, what tool to build, but it goes more towards what is the problem that we are solving. Where are the bottlenecks? Where are we trying to save time and money? And where is that people are having a lot of difficulties with manual processes and trying to realize value where we can. And So that's why I think what we do in the beginning is the discovery phase. So the discovery is very important because that's how you understand really about where the bottlenecks are, and try to talk with the operational teams, because often what the leadership defines as an AI implementation is more on the sidelines of productivity gains. But it's when you talk to the operational teams, you realize it's not about productivity gains, it's about actually improving the process, optimizing your operations and everything. And that's what we do during the discovery phase. And then we after our findings from discovery phase, we map it to use cases, because not all of them that or not all of the problems that you discover are exactly technology problems. That could be generative AI, your traditional AI, it could be a simple automation problem, or sometimes it could just be a process optimization and nothing to do with technology. So I think that's part of what we do when organizations come to us. And one other major thing that we do is also feasibility study, because a lot of the companies have this excitement to become AI first, but they're not really prepared, or their environment is not prepared to do that. So I think that's where we also look at how their data landscape is, if they have siloed data, if they have fragmented data. So I think feasibility is also something that we check. And after having all of these is when we move to something called a pilot, to quickly implement something and get insights from how the adoption within the organization is.
Basically, building a prototype.
Yep.
After the
Absolutely.
But right now, every SaaS platforms claims to have AI features built in, right? So, but companies are still looking for custom AI solution. So, what are these generic AI tools missing? Where's the gap? Is it the business context or the workflow integration or something else?
I think it's a bit of everything. So I think one of the major misconceptions that's out there is when you add an AI feature to your product, it automatically becomes like an AI, AI-driven application for enterprise, which is not the case, because with all good intentions, all the AI features being added into your SaaS platforms are usually horizontally driven. They do general purpose things pretty well for anybody using the product, but enterprise solutions require a lot of custom solutions, and also models that are really grounded in the knowledge and the policies and workflows of the organization that it is being used for. So I think that's one of the reasons why there is a gap, that the specificity and the grounding into the knowledge specific to the organization is missing when it comes to these SaaS platforms. Another major thing is also that workflow integrations, right? Like whenever you're using a product, it should not be just another application that the user is having to open. So integrating the solutions within your workflow, understanding the terminologies and policies of what the organization is very important, which is why I feel SaaS platforms that are very that have the tendency to become very successful are the kind of products where AI is integrated within their workflow. It could be something like a CRM system, ERP systems, where solutions are integrated within the system itself, such that the users are not really going outside of the application or adding one more step to what they're doing. And I think another major important thing is also governance and security aspects of things. Like when you come to enterprise solutioning, you need you have a lot of compliance and security related issues as well, user roles, RBACs, and data governance and everything. And I think that's where the gap happens between what AI driven features that SaaS platform offer versus what like an enterprise level solution custom built for them provide to the clients.
Absolutely. So let's say now you have identified a real use case and you are building something custom, maybe an AI agent to handle a specific workflow, or maybe a system to make their data more accessible. So what happened next? How do you actually build it now?
So I think that is when we are moving from more of an ideation kind of a phase to more of an implementation phase. And I think that's where, like I mentioned earlier, the discovery phase really comes into picture, where we get to the group grassroots level and we kind of start asking, what the process is, where does it start, where is it getting blocked, where is the actual bottlenecks within the process as well, and finally, where is it that AI needs to be plugged into this process. And I think that's what is the most important point, because one of the problems that happens is when people try to introduce AI where it is not required. So I think that's where we kind of ensure that AI is introduced in small chunks in places where it is absolutely necessary. You are not necessarily trying to replace an entire process all at once by introducing AI there. I think the merit is there in understanding so where to plug in the AI solution initially, so that the adoption is a little bit quicker, the transition is a little bit smoother that way. And I think once we do that, we understand where the AI workflow can be integrated. We also ensure there's a human in the loop to begin with. Like, sometimes it could just be like, hey, the ticket has been a customer support ticket has been resolved and the resolution is ready. All you need to do is look at it and approve it. Something like that, so that the transition is smoother when we do things like that. And apart from that, another major thing that we also look into is orchestration, right? Because when we are building an AI solution, you are going to be working with multiple stakeholders, right? Be it a security team, compliance team, could be various departments that you're working with, and it could also be teams that are product teams within the organization. So we ensure that there is a healthy collaboration with all the stakeholders that are involved. We identify them early on, and we try to ensure that we identify champions as well from all these departments, so that we have point of contact, because sometimes passive ownership becomes an issue in us implementing the things that we're implementing. Again, and finally, I think one more major thing that I already spoke about is also workflow integrations, right? What systems are available today, where can AI actually be plugged in, such that it's, like I said, it's not another tool that an employee has to operate outside of what they're doing as well, but it actually sits within their workflows and their operations. So I think once we do this is when we also look into the governance and security aspects of things on like the API integrations, the role-based access, the security protocols, the guardrails around the LLMs that we're using. So I think these are pretty much the areas that we really dwell into when we start looking into implementation of an AI solution.
So, Varun, while building, have you ever had a situation where an employee just does not cooperate, like they do not share any information or delay process just intentionally? And if I may ask, like, what's the most direct pushback you have gotten? So, Varun, while building, have you ever had that situation where employees just do not cooperate, they don't share information, or they just intentionally slow things down?
Absolutely unfortunate, but absolutely it happens. And honestly, that's more common than people think. Like people really would and think that it would be lower, but it's not. A lot of the enterprise AI challenges are not actually technical, but they're also more human and cultural to understand, like, how the adoption can take place. Because most of the times when they hear AI transformation, I think the first thing that comes to their mind is, am I going to get replaced? Is my expertise not going to be there anymore? And I think that's a healthy fear that people have.
But like, what's the most direct pushback you have gotten?
I think pushbacks are usually direct and indirect. In my opinion, direct is someone, refusing to share information, or someone not participating in workshops, or someone openly opposing the idea of, changing their workflows. But sometimes it's also passive in ways that, people, despite having an AI solution, are not really using it. And like, people not giving feedbacks, people sticking to their older methods. And like, that's part of what we get as a challenge. And I think I think that's something that you face.
And why do you think this resistance exists? Like, what's the main?
I think a lot of this resistance doesn't come from a place of hostility, but it comes from the place of uncertainty, because there's a lack of communication when we do this implementation. And that's why change management is very important when we go for implementations like this, that the leadership has to be very communicative and, be able to lay out the reasoning and purpose behind why we are building these AI solutions. And I think that's how from the beginning we position our AI solutions as well, that, this at this point is strictly a productivity gaining tool for you. And it is there to help you. It is there to ensure that the friction and the bottlenecks that are happening within your processes can be mitigated using these kind of solutions. And that is one of the reasons also why it is very, very important to kind of involve people from the ground, from the beginning itself. Because usually what happens is it's a top down implementation, right? You get a requirement from leadership, and that flows down, you build a solution, and then you hand it over to employees who had nothing to do with building the solution at all.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the problem lies. That is why it's very important to have people on the ground, like I mentioned, champions, who are able to build the solution along with you. And I think when there is that trust and communication and a buy-in with what we are building from at the grassroots level, that's when you have a lot of ease while adoption. You have a lot of people who are at ease because now they know what the solution is and what the target of that solution is. It is to actually help reduce some kind of friction or help some business outcomes that way. And I think that is very key in your implementation, on how well you communicate to the people within the organization and how well the solution is perceived by them.
And where do you think this resistance come from?
And also, one more important part is resistance is always not a blocker. Sometimes resistance ends up kind of exposing a lot of the kind of process bottlenecks or process gaps that are also there, because sometimes a lot of very important processes in the organizations are working on instinct. There is no workflow, there's no kind of a defined state for that. And when you do these kind of work, is also an opportunity for you to identify what those gaps and silos are.
So Varun, as you also pointed out, that AI implementation is a top-down method. But most of the times, operational staff or ground level employees are not involved in the process of building AI. So, and then leaders think that it is a one-time training problem. So, what do you think? How accurate is that framing?
Yeah, I think that's why a lot of the AI pilots don't end up really seeing the light of the day. I think one of the things that needs a little bit of reframing is that AI is not like a software rollout that you build a tool, you give some training, and then you give it out. I think a lot of that is also a process optimization kind of an activity, right? It's not just you give a software and somebody is gonna use it and suddenly it becomes very useful in this productivity. I think, like I mentioned earlier, there are a few things that absolutely need to be taken care of apart from just training and rolling out products. One is clarity. Like I mentioned, communicating why have we brought this solution in. Like, people using it on the ground level need to know what are we trying to solve with the solution that we have brought about. So that clarity is very important. And I think also some level of cultural signaling, that is, you can't introduce a solution and when people look up to you, you still are sticking to your old traditional methods, and you're rewarding people with those kind of methodology as well. So I think that is also important, that you shift the mindset and you lead by example in how you are able to utilize AI or utilize the solution that you're working on, and be able to actually be more involved in the implementation, kind of encourage kind of workshops that are happening within the organization. And that could be a good way to ensure and shift the focus and shift the thinking within the organization about the adoption and usability of AI. And I think finally, there's also a lot of merit in thinking about workflow redesigns, like I mentioned earlier, because you cannot keep going on digitizing every inefficiency and expect that you're going to see productivity. There has to be a broader level thinking on now with the introduction of AI, can the process be done differently? So it's not a solution or a tool that you're giving and training people on. It's also on the lines of, can I redesign this process around AI such that it is improved and it's actually morphed into something that is actually useful.
So now let's talk about measurements. So if a CEO invests in AI and a tool gets built, then how do you measure that it is working fine or is it successful?
That's actually a great question, because I think just because you've developed and deployed an AI solution doesn't mean it's working. So in my opinion, there are certain ways of measuring and understanding whether the AI solution is really working or not. I think first is absolutely adoption, that trying to see how many users are actually visiting the application. If you have introduced a button within a workflow that is helping you with AI, how many times has it been clicked? How many times repeat users are coming to that? And that gives you a signaling on, like, is it actually being used or not? And if you notice that people are not repeatedly coming back, that means definitely either the trust is low, or the solution that you've built has not really integrated well, or it is not really helping them. That's a good tell sign of understanding that something has not been developed well enough for adoption. And I think as an extension of that, you have also the operational impact. Operational impact has to go in the lines of, like, has there been reduction in, say, a ticket's turnaround time? Has there been reduction in amount of manual effort being put into the work that they're doing, right? If in case of traditionals, has there been improved accuracy in what is being predicted? Has our SLAs being better met compared to what they were before? So that is also a good way of measuring operational impact, AI's operational impact as well. And as an extension of that is where you have your business impacts and business outcomes, where it talks about cost savings. Has there been revenue impact? What's the customer satisfaction level? What is the kind of margin improvements we have seen because of this? So I think these three are a good way of establishing adoption, operational impact, and business impacts is a good way of measuring whether the implementation that you've done in a quantifiable way doing what it is supposed to do. And I think finally, on the implementation side itself, it's also you measuring your LLMs and your solutions feasibility, or not feasibility, I would say more on the lines of its performance, right? How much feedback, how much is positive, how much is negative, is there any data drifts, are there any hallucinations that are happening? And I think one major part that I want to say is all these measurements are not necessarily static. Like, as your solution matures, as more people are using it, the way you are measuring it is also changes. So should not stick to something that we started once. It changes as you go. So I think that has to be accounted for in the way that you're measuring AI's impact in your organization.
All right, and how can Kanerika, as an AI implementation partner, can help these employees turn that fear into confidence?
Yeah, so I think one great thing that Kanerika has done is it has gotten into AI game pretty early, right? We have worked for the enterprise AI adoption with a lot of organizations from the beginning, and that brings us a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience in how we go about it. Since having that level of experience makes it easy for us to understand the patterns within organization, and we have a good framework of discovery, design, mapping the use cases, and then finally building a roadmap and going about all these MVPs and in a measurable, quantifiable way, such that you can see results early on. And we always believe in a phase-wise approach, as I mentioned earlier, because I think one of the problems that a lot of enterprise applications or the leaders within that do is that they have this perspective of I want to replace everything with AI. AI is going to be the forefront of everything, and I think that's where a lot of the problems arise from. So we have upskilled ourselves, or we have learned to understand where exactly to plug in AI, what level of what level of changes can make the adoption easy for people who are coming to us for AI solutioning. And I think that experience and expertise really helps Kanerika in not just the technical side of things, which is building applications. We have ample amount of expertise in that, but also how to strategize going about it, with how to go about change management, how to go about communication, and how to go about positioning such that the adoption and the fear that people get driven by when it comes to AI solutions is mitigated.
Yeah. Now we have actually talked a lot about what goes wrong, but I want to know what does an organization looks like if an AI adoption is working fine, not just on paper, but in a day-to-day behavior.
It's very exciting times when that happens, obviously. But I think the most telling sign is that AI is not seen as a siloed project or a special initiative anymore, but AI is seen as part of their workflows. Like it's a day-to-day thing. It's not looking. People don't end up saying that hey, let me go use that AI tool, but instead it naturally is part of what they're doing. A lot of the insights that are getting generated, a lot of work they're doing is actually now driven by AI. And I think that's a very good sign of saying that an adoption or like some things are going well. And I think another very good sign of like AI being doing doing a good job within the organization is also when you suddenly see curiosity out of people. So in one of the implementations that I had done when we built an application for a customer support agent, I think the moment when people started coming to me and saying that, hey, do you think AI can do this as well? Hey, we have this workflow where this is happening, and do you think AI can additionally? It's when people start coming to you and asking, hey, can we do this instead? Can we add this feature? Is actually the most exciting and rewarding side of things. That's when you can tell that something that we have implemented as a solution within the organization is working, because you're getting that kind of buy-in. People have trust in your application. They are using it more, and there are a lot of repeated users as well. People are coming to you with all these questions and curiosity about what's happening next, what we're doing next. And there's a good coordination between the stakeholder business and technical teams, because it's not siloed anymore. People are actually excited about the aspect of what it brings. And as opposed to people saying, hey, AI generated this, they're saying that, hey, we finally have insights into operational data, like you were asking earlier, right? Now, as a business analyst or as like a project manager, I don't need to rely on a data guy to get my insights out. I can say that, hey, I using natural language, I'm able to get my information out. So it is when the bridge between these business and the technical teams is very kind of thin, is when you can say that AI is working well, and that shows in the culture within the organization as well.
Fear becomes confidence.
Absolutely.
So, coming to our last question, I want to ask if any CEO is listening right now and their company is actually struggling with AI adoption, employees are resisting, the projects are slowing down. So, what would be the one piece of advice you'll give them?
I think my advice would be to stop treating AI adoption as a technology problem, and try to shift the mindset to an organizational transformation. I think one is to absolutely introduce clarity early on why we are building the solution, what problem are we solving, and what the measurable impact of this solution could be. Secondly, I would definitely say involvement is definitely one, that be actively involved, and also be part of the change. Lead by example on why using the solutions that are being rewarding people for actually not punishing people when they're not able to really incorporate it well, but guide them better. Third is where we see a lot of issues is also leadership alignment, and not just with one department, right? Because even if you're building a solution for a particular department, you need buy-in from a lot of other departments, be it compliance, and like we mentioned earlier. And a lot of the times they have their own priorities, right? They have their own backlogs and everything. So I think it's very important as a leader that there's just not passive agreement between people, because then nobody ends up owning the project. So there is a lot of value in the CEO themselves and ensuring that the leadership alignment across all verticals are there, so that when we go for implementation, it is easy. And finally, I would say that they should be patient with this adoption, because it's not easy. The technology moves really fast, but sometimes organizations can't move that fast. So there should always be a little bit of patience in trying to see this adoption happening, and give it time and a little bit of room of error, so that the organization catches up to the technology.
So, Arun, thank you for joining in. It has been incredibly valuable. But before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts for our listeners?
So I think the only final thought is AI adoption should not be treated as the most shiniest technology and most advanced tools that have been provided to the organization. They should be tangible, and they should be actually helpful in improving the process and making it faster and more efficient for people who are using it.
And for everyone listening, if you are struggling with AI adoption challenges or figuring out why your last AI project failed, Kanerika can help. You can reach out through our socials or directly on www.kanerika.com/meet. Thank you for tuning in. See you next episode.